What's going on, everybody? We are back again. We're going to be talking about financial planning, and I hope y'all have been enjoying this bit of a series. It's kind of like my introduction to what's called the Manny Hall Show, something that I had years and years ago that I actually stopped doing because life just happened, got busy doing other things, but I've always had this love and passion to interview really great entrepreneurs, business. So this is what this series is all about, just really being able to highlight people in their field when they're doing their thing. Don, what's going on, sir?
What's up, my friend? You doing all right, man?
Well.
I'm trying to get used to this IG thing, man. You got me on here doing new things, teaching the old dog new tricks.
Hey, and I apologize for getting on a little later because my daughter, she had to end up getting picked up from school because she wasn't feeling good. So
oh, no.
I'm trying to get her tea, and I was trying to feel better myself because I think one of the kids got me sick. You probably hear it in my voice. I'm kind of stuffy right here.
You're going to be all right, man.
Yeah, but, we got to get it in still.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, would you mind just telling everyone who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity. Great minds think alike. We met over kind of a mastermind thing a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
So, but my name's Dominique Henderson. I am a certified financial planner. I practice all over the place because I have a virtual practice. That's part of how I spend my time. The other part of the time that I spend is consulting with financial advisors that are already in the space or people that are trying to get into the space, and they're, let's call them aspiring or maybe career changers. Gotcha. That are interested in this field. So really glad to be here. I kind of work as a coach and consultant, I guess.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And tell me one of the biggest reasons why you even got in this industry, because I know it wasn't just for the money. You obviously had some type of passion. You wanted to help people too, right?
Well, so that's a good question. I get it asked all the time, so I'm really good at answering, I hope. I think that, from a personal mission standpoint, I believe that good financial advice, real financial advice, relatable, empathetic, attentive listening, we can go through that later, but that type of financial advice has the ability to change family trees. And I don't know anybody that does not deserve the opportunity to change their family tree. And so that's why I started doing it. And then, by default, I'm just not going to reach everybody. So that's why I help people get into the industry so more people can be helped.
Absolutely. No, that's totally real. And, let's get right into it, Dom. Why is there this apparent disparity within our community of people not wanting to be educated about finances, but they want finances? So it's like you want this, but you don't want to talk about this. You don't want to learn about this. Like, what's the reason for that in your experience that you found?
In a word that we can just unpack is exposure, right? Mm-hmm. So in our communities, specifically people of color that look like us, there has been the absence of that type of education for a very, very long time. And, I hate to use this, but let's go back to, like slave days, right? Slaves couldn't read. It was like against the law. So like all that information that was in the Bible or in books or other kind of stuff was kept from them. And I think largely what we're talking about now is, information is ubiquitous, right? You can kind of put it on Google or YouTube and you can search it. And now that information is available, it's now being used, and we're seeing the wealth transfer happen. But I think it's fairly recent that has been the case. When I graduated from Prairie View in '98, like the internet was still not really a big thing, right? It was still kind of like, the internet, So we still had Netscape and AOL and all that kind of stuff. So all that to say, it's fairly recent that this information has been available. So it's going to take some time before it penetrates.
Gotcha. That totally makes sense. Now, for those that have this listening ear that are somewhat receptive to it, what have you found has been like that bridge to be able to help them get across?
Not a shameless plug, but working with a professional is very helpful because when you don't know about something, it's good to take someone else's knowledge, the mistakes that they've seen be made, and leverage that. I'm a big proponent of leverage, right? So an example I always use is I have somebody that comes and cuts my yard. Well, I know how to cut my yard. I'm actually pretty good at it, but at the rate he changes, he does that for me versus an hour worth of my time, it makes sense to do that trade all day. And so I think people should be thinking about it from that standpoint, especially if there's things that they do well already, like you have a career or vocation or a skill that you can employ. Why go learn this on your own when you could use a professional's knowledge?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? And for most of my clients, you know, that are coaches, mentors, consultants, you know, one of the things I really highlight a lot is expressing to your audience the need for a mentor, because if it's never taught, then it's almost this assumption that everybody realizes that they need some help. No, I mean, you think about it, us as human beings, we've always been taught to have this survival instinct, to go get it yourself, to go find the information, go on YouTube, like put somebody in the headlock for the information if you need to, like do what you gotta do. But you know, hiring a coach, hiring a mentor, somebody that is way more professional and polished in this particular area, sometimes is letting some of that pride go and being a little bit honest with yourself to say, I probably am making some financial mistakes that I could get some assistance on some of these areas. Like, have you found that pride is sometimes an issue?
Yeah, and I'll cut both ways with this knife. I think, yes, from consumer financial services, yes, those can be some issues, pride, intimidation, that kind of stuff, where you feel like, you know, you get to a place in your career, you feel like you should know some of this stuff, but you just never knew. Yeah. Like right now, I don't know how often in school they're teaching you how to like a balance a checkbook, but like just that skill alone, you know. But I'll say it the other way too. I think the financial services industry can do a much better job on educating the consumer, being empathetic, having a listening ear, not talking down to people, and being more of a coach and an educator when people come to you too. I think it cuts both ways because, you know, and excuse my appearance today because I am buttoned up, but like our industry is too buttoned up. It's like, you know, people are with, you know, they have behind their mahogany desk with all the information in, and they're like, okay, so what are you doing here today? You know, that should not be the... With
all the fancy books and degrees behind you too. Right. One of those guys, that's what you're talking about.
It's well earned, man. Well earned. No, but to that point, you still need to be... I often say this to people that I coach. Great, got a master's degree, got an undergrad, got CFP. That's all great. But at the end of the day, I don't think clients really care about that. And I would say that most of my advice, the recommendations I give, come from being married for 25 years and having 3 kids. That's just being real, right? So I think at the end of the day, you do need to learn how to talk to people. That might be a skill you want to develop as a financial professional.
For sure. That totally makes sense. Now, what's the reason for like all the red tape? And because I've had clients in your industry before, and they're like, well, no, man, they can't say that, can't do that. Like, what's the real reason behind all of this?
Man, the short version of this is that to give investment advice, you have to be licensed. Okay. And I don't want to get into too much of the minutia of that, but the law that governs that is the Investment Advisors Act of 1940. Gotcha. We're in 2022. So just do the math. That's a really old law. It did not, I mean, we weren't even into we were barely into the industrial age, let alone the digital technology age that we're in right now when that law was written. So all that to say, it needs to be redone.
Gotcha.
And something I was telling my community last night in a mastermind is that you have firms like myself, one person firm, registered investment advisor. I talk to maybe, you know, I handle like 40 to 50 client families. Not a whole lot of stuff that I'm going to be doing wrong because I got so much reputational capital on the line. I can't practice no more if I do something wrong. So I have no incentive to do that. But on the flip side of that, you get these big brokerage houses, the Merrill Lynch's, the TD Ameritrade, the BBs, and they have tens of thousands of registered reps. And they have to manage to the lowest common denominator. So what Joe Knucklehead goes to say can't be the same thing that Dominique, with 20 years in the experience in the industry, says. Those two things kind of are different. And we can kind of talk about qualifications of financial professionals because that's where it comes from. And so therefore, the rules and the regulations around governing Joe Knucklehead seem a little stringent and hard, like they got him in a headlock because they should, right? He doesn't know what he's talking about, and sometimes he can hurt the industry, or hurt, at least hurt that firm.
Gotcha. Okay, so there's probably no time soon that they're going to lift some of these restrictions from at least like a social media standpoint, because I'll be honest with you, as an agency, sometimes my hands is tied. Like, well, I want to say this. Like, no, man, we can't say that. You're going to make me lose everything. It's like, can I say this? Like, no, you can't say none of that.
Most of it's around client. So if we really just break down the law, just real quick, if we break down the law, it's about speaking about client-specific performance as it relates to their investments. So if you were investing with me and we were able to make you 25%, like I can't get you coming on live talking about Dominique's the best because he made me 25%. Gotcha. Like that's really the gist of it. Gotcha. Because everybody's performance is going to be a little different depending on the type of portfolio you put them in. So the law is really trying to get people from saying stuff like that. But if you came on, or, I got Google reviews from clients that said, hey, I really love working with Dominique or DGH Capital Management. We've been able to do blah, 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 blah. That kind of stuff is okay. So
Gotcha. No, that totally makes sense. And I was just curious about that particular piece because I just hear so many times those like horror stories.
We call it the compliance boogeyman because there's a lot more bark than bite when it comes to that, but it's for the reasons that I named.
That makes sense. All right, now let's get into the fun part of financial planning, like that juicy part that everybody wants to talk about, all the success. Like, allow us to work backwards, Dom, and teach us, like, what should we be doing in order to get to this place of true satisfaction in our 50s and 60s where we can retire comfortably?
Wow. So everyone's a little different, I would say, but if we want to go generalizations, I always like to start people with why are we here? What's brought you here? Usually there's an event, there's something taking place in your life that says, I think I want to get the help of a professional, because most people for all their lives do their own thing with their own money. And so we got to start there. And I think since we all are going to have different goals, that's really key for me to understand, even if it's a little hard for me to help you bring out or articulate. I need to spend time as a financial professional there, really understanding what Manny wants to do with his money, why he wants to do that with his money, what type of lifestyle is that going to afford him, the feelings around all those things that you'll be able to do. I think that's the first thing. And then we start implementing a plan that makes sense. Because if I start to assume that you just want, $10 million, like the next guy, then I don't know necessarily how that's going to serve you. Let alone if you don't live to the point where you're actually able to, spend that money, right? What happened to the time that you were able to spend with your wife or your daughter, any of this kind of stuff. So all those things I think are really, really key to asking a client when you first get there and starting there. So I call that discovery, right? We start with discovery, and that allows us to kind of build trust and rapport. And so that when I start giving you all these recommendations to implement, you actually do them. Right, you have the incentive to do that, because I can remind you. So you remember you said you want to make this money so you can spend more time with your family, but your spending habits aren't really reflective of what you said you want to do. So like, which one do you want to do? And then it's kind of on you, right?
Now it sounds like that's a whole nother course that you can just package up right there, because I think it's really amazing when you think about helping people to understand how changing your habits is actually going to get you closer to your goals. Because like you said, they can come to you and say, I got this big audacious goal. Okay, great. Well, here are the habits. Here's the behavior that you're going to need to exhibit in order to reach this particular goal. Now, have you had some clients, don't put their name out there because they're going to be mad at you, Don, but have you ever had some clients that was a little hard-headed that didn't do what they were supposed to do?
Oh yeah, all the time to this day. I think human behavior is interesting. So I actually, I don't know if I'm weird in this, but like I have a lot of interest around behavioral finance and just human psychology, because personal finance is so much more personal than finance.
Yeah.
I mean, even the Bible says, where your treasure is, your heart will be also, right? Yeah. So we know that our heart follows our money, much as we may try to refute that. So I think, so two things. Yes, I do have that happen. And as a professional, my job is not to tell you what to do with your money per se. You already know what you want to do with your money.
Yep.
I'm there to gently remind you of the things that you said are important, and those
Mm.
things can change. Like if I'm
Yep.
flying from New York to LA and I got turbulence over Kansas City, I got to go around. So the flight plan can change. But what I'm here for more so, I think more than anything, is to help simplify things. I come along as a partner, as a collaborator. You know, I'm not driving the ship. I'm definitely co-captain.
Gotcha.
But I can tell you to kind of watch out for that rock over there. You know, and or if you keep on this same trajectory, this is what's going to happen to the plan, right? And try to introduce some of those what ifs and see how plausible they are. But when people go off plan, if you will, it depends on how, like, what kind of off plan are we talking about, right? Is it, hey, I was going to be earning this amount of money, we build a plan based on this, and then you're like, I quit that job, I didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty drastic. But if we're talking about, hey, you know, my family's going through a little bit, I want to be able to help out my sister, or I want to be able to give a little at church more, or whatever those things are, and this is going to be a slight change for the next 3 or 6 months, no biggie. We can adjust, you know. But I always try to be kind of, you know, empathetic to what's going on, because we're piling up this money, we're earning it, we're trading our time for it. Like, we want to be able to enjoy it, right? So I'm all about you being able to enjoy it.
Absolutely. So, you know, and back to that same point, without having a change of, and I would probably even go back to mindset. So, like, without even having that change of mindset, you know, sometimes it can be difficult for someone in your position to really help them, because you give them the plan, you give them the strategy, but in the back of their mind, they're like, okay, I can do this. But the other large part of them that's really ruling them, because it's their habits, is I spend the money whatever I want on. He can't tell me to do nothing. I'm grown. I can do whatever I want to do. And it really stops us. So it's like, what I found, and no matter what the industry, no matter what type of help that you're personally trying to receive for your business or personally, you have to change that mindset for where you want to go. Now, if your plan and goal is to stay stagnant in this place for the rest of your life, then fine, stay there. But as soon as you start talking about elevation, you have to change that mindset, because there's a different you that's going to be required in order to stay on that level. Or otherwise, you're going to be looking back and saying, why didn't things work out for me? Like, I had this plan, I actually had the money, I was making the money, I was doing this, but I lost it all. It's because that mindset never changed.
No, and I would insert a thought. Me and my wife were saying this, talking about this the other day. It doesn't take long to change your mind. It may take a long time to decide to change your mind. And I'm not just playing with words. Like, really, you can change instantly depending on what's motivating you.
Right.
I always tell
Facts.
people, we're talking about results. People are always focused on results, but yeah, it starts with the mindset. The mindset will dictate how you act, how you behave, what you decide. And those three things coupled together is really, if you want to think about it, is deliberate practice. Whatever you're deliberately practicing is going to be the results you get. So if you find yourself in bondage, it's been a result of your deliberate practice, which is a result of your mindset. If you find yourself in freedom, it's been a result of your deliberate practice, which is a result of your mindset.
Wow. And that goes back to the habits. So it's just like, in a sense, what you're saying, that I want to make sure I'm clear, is that these deliberate practices, right? This is you being consciously making this decision every single day that you're going to do this, literally until it becomes a habit. And then by that time, it's a program running, so you're straight. But in the beginning, it is going to take a little bit of willpower and you being more conscious to say, I'm doing this because I've decided to live this way, and here are the requirements.
Yep. Yeah. So let's use an example everybody can jive with. So let's just say you want to lose some weight, right? You're not at your ideal weight, whatever that is, and you're like, I need to lose some. So what you're gonna first do is more than likely you're gonna step on a scale, because you got to assess where you are versus where you want to go. Then the scale's gonna say something. Now you could say, man, this scale, something wrong with this scale. But like, it's a scale. It's a universal standard. It's telling you how much you weigh. And if you want to lose 20 pounds, then there's things you need to do to address that. right? So we assess, then we address, okay, I'm 20 pounds overweight. Now I could, I can make some adjustments. Here's your third A. I can adjust and I can eat less, or I can work out, or I can do both. But when you're doing these incremental things, it's gonna be different. Like if you've never gone to the gym before, it's gonna it might hurt a little bit, and you have to keep that practice up. And then what's eventually gonna happen that allows you to achieve your goal is you're gonna do those things over and over. Now at first, you're not gonna notice any different, and nobody else will either, right? But then you're gonna be looking in the mirror one day, you're gonna be like, man, I look kind of good. And then somebody else is gonna notice, because after time, that's just what that looks like. And so I think everything is habit. Everything we've ever done, whether it's successful or unsuccessful, has been a result of a habit. I totally agree with that.
So almost like we need to learn how to have these, and for no better words to say it, just like this, rich habits. So it's like you want to be rich, you have to have rich money habits. Like, what are they doing with their money? What are they doing with their time? What are they doing with their yeses and their nos? And I love what you're saying, even with that example about weight, because it's really going back to what you said, a decision. And it's like once that decision is made, then you start to backtrack and say, okay, how can I reverse engineer this entire process? So look, y'all, like we have somebody here on this live that's going to be giving you so much game. You need to go to his page, like visit him, see what he's talking about, join his programs, whatever he got going on, because he's here to help. Now, you're not going to be able to achieve all these things by osmosis, but I like the thing that he said. If you made such a firm, committed decision right now or tomorrow or next week, whenever you made it, things can be sped along for you. But it's going back to the example. You want to lose weight, or are you just going to cut back some of your eating habits that have been kind of hard and challenging on your body? Or do you work out? Or do you do both? Because now you have an opportunity to get faster results. So I would liken this to hiring a coach. Yes, you can watch YouTube videos all day long. Yes, you can watch people's Instagram page and read all their posts, but it's not until somebody properly sits down and assesses your situation that you will finally understand what it is that you got to do. Would you agree with that, Don?
Oh, absolutely. That accountability is huge. I mean, even if so like, let's use a financial example. So, we want to keep it 100 with the finances. Like, I forgot when this study was done, but it was like the average American spends something like 18 grand on non-essentials. Like stuff that does not add to your life.
Wow.
Well, the math of that is 18 grand at just 7%, which is what, if you just have a mix of just plain vanilla stocks and bonds in a 60-40 portfolio, 60% equities, 40% bonds. You don't even have to buy a lot of stuff to do that. You can buy one fund that does that for you. So it's like really, really easy. So 18 grand a year, at just 7%, which is what you can get as long as you hold your money, probably 17 years. Yep. Over 25 years, that's over $1 million. Just the stuff that you don't even need in life, the non-essentials, is $1 million over 25 years.
Wow.
Like, just think about this. Like 18 divided by 12 is what, like 1,500 bucks? It's not even a lot of money, but that's a lot of, when you're talking about stuff that does not have any lasting value in your life. Like you can't even remember some of your non-essentials that you bought, like maybe even like last month.
Yeah, facts.
Let alone over a whole year.
Facts. All right, now, we've been dealing with the personal, and I wanted to make sure that part was highlighted, but now let's start talking about these business owners that are trying to go to the next level, but they're just not doing right with their finances, or maybe they are doing right, but they still need a little bit more hand-holding to get to this next level. Like, what have you found has been one or two, possibly three, of the biggest mistakes of business owners are making in terms of going to the next level financially with their planning?
Number one mistake is not knowing your numbers. I actually have business owner clients, some of which I do the bookkeeping for, and like before then they didn't know their numbers. Like you should know your numbers. You should know, what did you make last month? What is your highest selling product? How much does it cost you to produce it? Like you should be producing a profit and loss statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement every month. You should know your numbers. Like that's the number one thing, because if you don't know what you're making, like how do you know how much to pay yourself? You know how much you can invest, How much do you know how much you can take advantage of taxes? Because like business owners have so many different things they can do to reduce not only their current income tax, but their future liabilities with, you know, like cash-based pension plans, all kinds of things you can do in order to, if your business is making a lot of money and you don't want to pay a big tax bill, there's tax shelters that are legal. Not this like weird stuff that everybody be talking about. Like, I gotta have like, this, genius accountant that's in the Bahamas or the Grand Cayman Islands to do this. No, like this is the stuff that is available for everybody to do, but it's hard to do if you don't know your numbers.
Okay, so that's one. Definitely knowing numbers. What's some more?
Number two, along the same line. So a book I recommend, I had him on my podcast, Mike McAllowitz, Profit First. It's a book that every business owner should read. Every business owner, because when it comes to how often do you pay yourself, how much do you pay yourself, what is the rubric by which you pay yourself? Because this good, and like I said, it ties into number one, because you got this crossover between personal expenses and business expenses. And then when you get the tax time, you got all these different deductions you need to take. And then you're like, okay, so where's the money coming from? And then you get into an audit, and then you end up giving more money and time away. So that bookkeeping and that particular book, Profit First, so it really gives you a rubric on how your business should operate. And you know how everybody talks about the bottom line, and so you're going to have your income minus your expenses, and then you have your profit. And then everybody's always trying to manage around this expenses number, really. But just to kind of give it away a little bit, the notion around that is no, profit first. How can I concentrate on profit first and what I want to pay myself and what I want this business to make? So it then starts you looking really microscopically at, do I actually need that particular expense right there? Because at the end of the day, I should be running a pretty lean business based on these particular numbers, which is the reason why you have to do it. So, yeah, and I think, if we're talking about solos, that's a really good thing. But even if we're talking about people with, like, let's say 5 or 10 employees, the retirement plans and the benefits to retain good talent, because that's what I know is a problem with business. And I see that when you start to get some momentum and some steam, and then this person that has been with you for a while, that you trained up and that's really valuable to your firm, then they leave.
Yeah.
Like, man, how can I retain better talent or that particular talent? Well, it has to do with your total comp, not just what you're putting on that W-2, but, benefits, retirement plan options, all those different things, those extra things that help people live the type of lifestyle they want. A lot of business owners don't spend as much time on that part of the business because that's not their expertise. Somebody's coming to them saying, trying to sell a 401k plan or insurance or this kind of things. And they're like, okay, I don't know what all these options are. It's good to sit down with somebody like myself or somebody that knows that stuff. So you kind of pick the best thing to not only retain the talent, but also pay yourself and build wealth for yourself, right? That's part of it too.
I love that. And I'm about to be totally transparent with you guys just about my finances as a business and how I made some mistakes with not having a mentor, not having a coach in this area, not even having a CPA properly at this time. So what was happening for me is I was bringing in so much money, and at the same time I had a whole family to take care of because I had just transitioned from my full-time job. So I'm like, okay, we got all this money coming in, and I was literally using my business account to pay for all ancillary things that I really needed. I mean, I would definitely write a check out to myself because that's some game I got. So I wrote checks out to myself, even having an S Corp at this time. But the problem is nobody was looking at my books. Nobody was paying attention to it. Didn't have anybody on the team. I didn't know how to look or what to look for. So I was just kind of spending recklessly, even though a lot of it was needed expenses, but without really being able to look at, like, where are we going as an organization? Like, for my businesses, it's pretty lean because we don't need a whole lot of employees to do a whole lot of things. So we have like the graphic designers, we have our content writers, web designers and things like that are taking care of things for us. But the majority of actually cost of goods is very low for us, which is fine. But then that also left so much excess money there. And then without being able to properly allocate it, it took me some time to really understand after failing and making so many mistakes and buying different softwares and programs to grow my business, but not even realizing that many of them I didn't even need. But again, this was me just on my own at the time trying to figure it all out. Can you talk to those people like I was back in the day?
Yeah, I think, you know, you got to have a really great system for that kind of stuff, because then you do get the, like I said, the momentum, and then you get these, you know, like kind of like these cash war chests, and you're like, okay, I know it shouldn't just be sitting in like a money market account. Like, is there a retirement plan? You know, if you're thinking just kind of conventional stuff, especially if you've come from corporate America, you're like, okay, well, 19,500 or 20,500 is not really a whole lot that I can put in there, which is the 401k plan limit. And even as a business owner, I can go up to 58, but like, it seems like there should be more stuff. And there is, right? You know, you can do those, like I said, those pension plans for your business. And you can even, and people are going to be like, what? Really? You can even really kind of discriminate with the type of income within the organization that works. Now, discriminate, people are going to be like, that's a bad word. But because you are a certain percentage owner in that business, the way that you get compensated and how much you get compensated can't be the same way as someone else. That makes a whole lot of sense, right? So taking advantage of those type of, they're not even really loopholes, they're just tax laws to build more wealth. And even using other products besides just the stock market, right? So we got like annuities and all type of insurance products where you could, you know, set up, for instance, using that extra cash to fund like a key man policy. So like, let's say it was you and two other people that own that business in different percentages. Well, there's insurance products out there so that if something happened to you and your wife inherited that part of the business, well, like, she's not going to run it like you. She actually needs that policy to fund amount of cash that can be used for a buyout of the firm for the other party, right? So there's all types of strategies out there. I think, to your point, it's all about getting a professional or a coach or a consultant in to give you what your options are, and then you can go from there about what may be best for your particular business.
Yep, absolutely. And, you know, during our call down, we was kind of talking about how I went through Myers program, and it was very, very costly. But, you know, the benefit of having that type of mentorship is like, you have this person's, you got access to their mind. And any question that you filter through, if they have experienced at least something remotely close to that answer, they're going to give it to you, and you can literally save years, sometimes 10, 15 years of mistakes just by one bit of information. So I know sometimes, y'all, that hiring coaches, people have complained about hiring me down. They said, man, I wanted to work with you, but you were just too expensive. And it wasn't that I was so expensive, Don. The problem was, is like, when you look at the access to information and how much time I can save you, how much money I can potentially make you, how much exposure for your brand you could get, sometimes that can be really priceless. So it's like, I can't allow it to be cheap, because people don't like to pay for cheap stuff. They like luxury. So it's like, you got the luxury people that want to pay for something with a luxurious price. You got the cheap people that are looking for a discount. And even if you said it was free, they was like, that's way too much. Wait a minute, I got to pay that much for that free? I don't even want it. So.
Well, it was something, I don't know if it was that you that said it, but the week that we met each other, it was a term that was said that I was like, this is so key. And I come across this all the time. So my typical person comes to me as a career changer, and they're like, yeah, I want to do this in financial services. And I'm like, okay, this is what it is going to look like from a time standpoint and a cost standpoint. So I can take my 20 plus years and dump it in you. Right. So you don't have to go figure that stuff out. Right. And like, they balk at the price. Well, the thing that we heard, and I don't know if you caught it, but people are always focused on that return on investment, ROI. Yeah. But there's a COI that I heard about, and I was like, wow, that cost of inaction, right? So a career changer that's making X, next year they're going to be making X plus something. And then next year they're going to be making X plus something else. And it's always going to be so hard to make the leap, because you're always making more money. And when you compare that to what you're going to start at when you want to become a financial advisor, you're going to be like, that gap. And that gap's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so you can make the argument that that cost of inaction is that gap. And it's just like people with their finances. The more you don't work with the professional, the more you don't implement a plan, the more you're not sticking to a strategy because it costs too much. That gap of that cost of inaction is just growing every day, every year that you don't do anything. And
then you know what's so deep, Dom, about that? We got to touch on that word atrophy that a lot of people don't even know about and they don't even want to talk about. Like and guys, I was studying it last night. It's literally, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Dom, but it's literally like this process of constant decline. It might be a little slower sometimes, but it's this constant decline due to inaction. If you actually doing nothing, the skill, the talent that you had is actually starts to go backwards. It starts to decline because you're not using it. So
that's real talk. That's real. Perfect example. I played keys from age 15 all the way through mid 30s in church and stuff. And I've recently picked it back up, and it's hard, man. Like I'm trying to do my little, all my finger exercises that hurt my fingers, like my hands is sore. Like I'm having to rebuild that. Now, granted, I do have a little muscle memory. I'm better than somebody just starting,
right? But
it's still difficult. Yeah. It's still difficult, and so I think people have to just be aware of, I think we as a society. So I do this as a financial planner, and I know this. I can speak from a place of authenticity around this. People overestimate how much they spend, underestimate how much they spend on stuff all the time. I would say in doing hundreds of financial plans a year, that when people tell me, when I go, how much does it take to run your household every month? And they give me X. It's been so many few times in 20 years that number has been close to X. It's always like 1.5 times X, 2X, 3X. People just don't know how much money they spend. Yeah. And then when you go through like a forensic of, okay, so what are you spending your money on? Like, I'm not here to judge you. I live in a glass house, no stones. But like, it doesn't align with what you said you want to do. So if we just take that money that you say we establish that does not do anything with what you said, we can just be invested in that little part. Rule of 72 says, all you have to do is take your return, divide that into 72, and that's how often your money doubles. Wow. So we can just get you 10%. Every 7 years, your money is doubling. Like, that's just Vanguard total stock market, and just leave it alone. That's not even really trying.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, when we go back to that number that I said earlier that would get you $1 million, that's just $18,000 at non-essentials a year. Like, if you're in six figures, like, that's no money. Like, so you can just put a little bit more with that, and you can have a lot. And most of the time, you can just save that through your 401k. So,
Facts. Okay, so as we get out of here, Dom, any last words, and make sure that you provide them with how to contact you and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way to contact me would be, and I always do this first because I always forget to say it after I give words of wisdom. DomHendersonSR.com. There's 2 buttons on that page. I want to work with you because of financial planning, or I want to become a financial planner. Really simple. So DomHendersonSR.com. That's the best page to go to. Parting thoughts. I think the overarching thing that we've been talking about today, Manny, is people have to act. And not just move forward, any type of move forward strategically. And if you need help moving forward strategically, it's okay to ask for help. Like, literally, it is. Like, think about, like, we pride ourselves in this current social construct of, I'm self-made and I pull myself up by my bootstraps. But, like, think about the fundamental things that you have learned to do in your life, like reading, tying your shoes, riding the bike. All that came through somebody helping you in imitation. So I don't know when we got away from it exactly, but, like, it's okay to ask for help.
But, Dom, I know we're about to close, but that's a really good point about that bike, because I'm going to use that one too, by the way. I like it. If I was trying to learn how to ride a bike, I could not just go on YouTube. I don't know.
Good luck to your knees and your ankles.
I mean, even if a baby was so sophisticated and smart and said, I'm about to watch this YouTube video on how to walk. Like, let's just say this little baby is 1.5, 2, and say, you know what? Mommy said some YouTube videos on learning how to walk. I don't need you guys' help. Don't even try to teach me. I got this.
Yeah, yeah.
It would be difficult to learn how to walk or ride a bike.
Yeah.
Or to brush your teeth. You couldn't watch a YouTube video on how to properly brush your teeth if you was a kid.
Yeah.
Let alone being responsible enough to consistently go do it to make sure that your mouth was clean. It's like, y'all, we need assistance. We all do. Listen, there's somebody in your life that's receiving assistance from you. But you might not just be being paid for it, but they're still using your services. They're still using your knowledge that's inside your head. What if you packaged that thing up and sold it?
Yeah.
Or what if you did? Fine. But there's the opportunity, y'all, for us to learn and grow and get better by having someone by our side that has already lived through some of that. And there's going to be different caveats and all that, but just look at the whole stream of everything that you're trying to achieve. Can you get some assistance? All right, Don, go ahead. I ain't going to say nothing else.
No. I'm just saying, no, you're preaching. Other communities do this. Other cultures do this. And I think we have to do more of it inside of our community to not only build wealth, but keep wealth, recirculate it, right? So I think that's important because it's not like our community doesn't make a lot of money. We totally do. We just don't spend it inside the community all the time. Gotcha. So that's part of the problem. But I don't want to get into an economics session here. I think what I would say, along with getting that help, get help because not only because it's easier and make things easier and you can take advantage of leverage, it's that accountability. Like, how many things have you really been able to stick to that you didn't have some type of accountability around? Right? That's why so many people that, you know, when you take people that partner up with things, they're way more successful, whether that's fitness goals or a business, because two is better than one. So think about that, right? Like, can you afford not to move faster is really the question you should be asking yourself. Like, I can't really afford this. It's too much. Well, can you afford not to move faster? Because the cost of inaction, as we talked about earlier, it can be huge.
I love that. I love that. Well, this has been absolutely great. If you don't mind, Dom, let's try to do this again sometime soon.
Yes, you're going to return the favor next week.
Yeah, because this has been absolutely amazing. I felt like it was so much value added. I'm going to have this onto the page, and then I'm going to create a YouTube video around it. I'm going to send that to you, too.
All right.
So everybody can get this good game. All right, y'all, thanks for tuning in. Again, it'll be saved, so you go watch the beginning and you take notes. Like, you take some copious notes. I remember a guy that I did a live video with. This is kind of funny now. So we're talking about leadership. He's an amazing guy, but when he has said, like, you know, y'all need to take copious notes, and I heard copious a few times before, but I was like, he's drilling that home, so I got to make sure that I'm telling my people much more to be taking some copious notes. So these are some serious notes. These ain't no regular notes you take.
Yeah. I'm going to drop a small hack because I think the first amount of time is free. So whenever they get this, whenever they're doing, they can download it. If they can, you know, there's ways to get stuff in MP4 form. Okay. You can upload this to something like otter.ai and it will transcribe for you. And you can listen to that, you know, which is like the third time you would have heard it. And then the way it's going to start getting in your brain. So small little hack if you don't want to, you know, do the little handwritten notes. But I think the handwritten notes would be good also if you want to transcribe it.
For sure. That's a good idea. That's an excellent idea. All right, y'all, be blessed. Thanks for your time. Talk to you guys soon.
All right.
Peace.